morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, October 17th, 2018. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by the People's Champ, Matt Baxendell. Bax, obviously some bad news in Buckeye Nation yesterday. Nick Bosa decided to end his Ohio State career and get ready for the NFL. Your reaction?
Well, first you can't blame him because none of us have ever been confronted with the choice of sit still and make $30 million, which is essentially what Nick decided to do. Was I'm not going to risk making $30 million because that's essentially what the number 2 pick in the draft is going to get this year. Because let's face it, a quarterback always goes first, and then you can talk about Nick going too. I don't blame him, but it also really supremely sucks because I think a lot of us were hoping to see him back for Michigan. We all know how much better the defense is with Nick Bosa in. And then the only part that I don't necessarily like is that they're saying that Bosa is going to withdraw from Ohio State. And that part bothers me just because he's a captain, and even if he's not going to play, you'd want him around the team, right, while he's rehabbing. And it's one thing to say we don't want him to get hurt any further, and I fully support that. But if you're going to, have him go to Florida or Philadelphia or Arizona and rehab for the next 3-4 months, that rubs me the wrong way. It's one thing to not play and be around your teammates as a captain. It's another thing to just say, all right, cool, I'm out. Like, there's no way he's going to hurt himself or his stock if he's staying in Columbus and being around his teammates and being at practice with them and maybe even being like a coach of sorts with his own experience. I would expect a team captain to stay in Columbus, so hopefully that's what happens. Even if he withdraws from school, he keeps practicing, or not practicing, being at practice and at the facility versus just leaving Columbus entirely. I think that part would bother me a lot more than him choosing not to play because of the financial risk of another injury.
Well, not to agitate you, but I have heard, and frankly, I asked Urban the question at the press conference Monday because I was tipped off Monday morning that Bosa was planning on doing this. I asked Urban Monday, and now Urban said he found out Sunday, and people now are saying Urban lied when he was answering my question. I don't think he was lying necessarily. He was not in a position to come out there and declare Nick was his career's over. He felt that was Nick's, and Urban didn't lie. He said he was hopeful. I think at that point, even though he had been told that was Nick's decision, I think it was so fresh that he was still hopeful maybe he would change his mind. So we were tipped off to that. But, the whole thing, it's just I don't know. It's just I know a lot of people are upset at Nick. A lot of Ohio State fans are upset at Nick. I have mixed emotions myself, but it seems like on our board, some people understand it. A lot of people are pissed off.
Yeah, and I would agree. First of all, Urban didn't lie about crap. It's not his story to tell. Him telling the press, hey, guys, I don't know, I'm hoping he comes back, whatever. That's not a lie. That's Nick Bosa is the one who has to come out and say, I've made the choice not to continue playing. That's not Urban's story to tell, right? Urban prepares the players who are there, and Nick's not anymore. And I agree with you. I understand it. The logical part, the advanced civilized part of Matt Baxendell knows full well that this is the intelligent decision for Nick Bosa in a violent game to not further risk his physical well-being, where his physical well-being is how he'll make millions of dollars and set himself and his future family up for life. The lizard brain part of me is furious because it's more to Michigan. The rabble, go Bucks, everything else doesn't matter part of me is livid because Ohio State has a much better chance of beating Michigan with Nick Bosa in the lineup. Ohio State has a much better chance of beating Alabama with Nick Bosa in the lineup. Ohio State has a much better chance of making the college football playoff with Nick Bosa in the lineup. The idea of Chase Young and Nick Bosa opposite each other is awesome, and we're not going to have it because Nick Bosa chose not to come play. That Ohio State part, I understand the fury a lot of people have, but it is not our life in the end, right? It's just like whenever a kid chooses to go play football somewhere else, that they don't commit to OSU, you want them to come, but if they don't say anything outwardly derogatory towards OSU, you have to grin and bear it and accept it, even though it makes no freaking sense from our point of view, right? It's the same thing here in a lot of ways. I hate that Nick Bosa doesn't want to play, but he's also in a unique situation where, what happens if he comes back and he tears his stomach up again, and all of a sudden teams see him as damaged goods and he falls from 2nd to 10th or 12th? I mean, those teams would be stupid, but still, it could easily happen. And for Nick Bosa, real money, that's $10 million. So for $10 million, if I looked at anybody and said, whatever thing it is you love to do, I'll pay you $10 million not to do it for another year, you'd probably take it, right? When you look at it like that, of course he made the right decision. But from the prism of there is no dollar amount that is enough to justify losing to Michigan ever, then losing Nick Bosa and giving them a 5% better chance of winning the game, 10% better chance of winning the game, that sucks, and I'm mad about that. But I can't be mad at Nick Bosa, the human being, just because my lizard Buckeye brain is pissed about it.
I want to circle back on something you said earlier. You mentioned you'd be upset if, he didn't stay with the team and everything. I don't think he's staying with the team. I think he's going to go to California. From everything I'm hearing, he's dropping out of school. He's going to go live with Joey. He's going to train in Los Angeles, Carson, I guess, technically. I'm not sure exactly where Joey lives, but somewhere near the soccer stadium there in Carson. If that's true, what's your reaction if Nick is just away from the team and he's just moving to California?
If Nick Bosa doesn't finish the season as part of the team, even if he's injured, he shouldn't be recognized as a captain. That's my opinion. That's a fair opinion. At the start of the year before he was hurt, he was the best player on the team. And even with Dwayne Haskins, as amazing as he is, Nick Bosa is the best player on the team. He's the one the whole team looks up to for leadership. And even if he's not able to play, he's not able to play because he's hurt. If he gets hurt and he decides he doesn't want to come back and play because he has to protect his future, nobody's going to be upset about that. But if Nick Bosa doesn't stay in Columbus and support his teammates after his injury, then he shouldn't be a captain as a permanent captain. We've had it before where OSU names captains and you have your final captain. Nick Bosa shouldn't be a captain. That's my opinion on that one. And if that sounds harsh or ungrateful to a guy who has done everything he could to help Ohio State football succeed while healthy, I'm sorry. But if he's expected to be a captain and a leader, leaders don't always get to play. People get hurt. Sometimes your captains are backups because people respect them so much. JT Barrett was named a backup the year Cardale was expected to start ahead of him. But it wasn't like JT didn't stick around the team because he was a captain, because he thought he had a chance to play. And, if Nick's not going to stick around the team while he rehabs, that's the one thing here that makes me legitimately mad, both lizard brain and logical brain. He's not hurting himself by rehabbing at Ohio State with his teammates. He's not hurting himself by doing everything he can in meetings with his teammates to help them succeed and beat Michigan and get to the college football playoffs. It doesn't hurt his future NFL earnings to stay at Ohio State and help his teammates. And it's not a captain-like act to just dip on the school and his team. That's the one thing that would make me legitimately mad, and if that's what he does, then shame on him.
Yeah, and for the listeners that are wondering, Bax is not suggesting that they strip his captaincy like it never happened. But the way it works is, though, Ohio State, when they name more than 4 captains, like this year they have 7 captains, at the end of the year, they have to pick 4 guys that are forever the captains of those teams. So, like the years Urban's had 12 captains. At the end of the year, they have to pick 4. And those 4, because that's Ohio State's tradition, are the 4 they're invited back every year for the captain's breakfast and everything they do. So I agree with you. Nick Bosa, while he is technically one of the 7 captains of the team right now, when they pick those 4 at the end of the year, he won't be one of them, and he should not be one of them. I agree. That's something I appreciate everything that Nick Bosa has done, but that's something he's forfeiting here by doing this. He's not going to forever be a captain at Ohio State. So a couple more things. We'll get you out of here. This is pretty much Bosa related, but still we're branching out a little bit. But I'm very confident in Chase Young. I don't know how you couldn't be. This guy is a future NFL stud in his own right. I'm not confident about the other DNs at all. I mean, I like the future of Tyreek Smith a lot. He's a true freshman. Tyler Friday, same deal, but true freshman. And I'm higher on Tyreek Smith, as the coaches are as well, by how much he plays. Jonathan Cooper not grading out well at all. I know some people blow off Pro Football Focus. I tend to think they do a good job. Jonathan Cooper not grading out well according to Pro Football Focus. And frankly, just my eye test, Cooper's not doing much. I know he didn't play last week, but he's going to come back this week. And Jayshon Cornell, I kind of had high expectations for him. He's really not doing much either. So bullish on Chase Young. I am really worried about the other DNs backs.
I have a solution that I'm going to propose here. Ohio State has numerous good defensive tackles. While Draymond Jones might be the best defensive tackle, Draymond Jones would also be our second best defensive end, and he might be almost as good as Chase Young with his quickness off the ball. It's rare you talk about moving a defensive tackle outside, but at a position in D tackle where we have a ton of depth, and a position at D end where our depth is non-existent, I think moving Draymond outside is something that they really need to strongly consider, because you can play Haskell Garrett, you can play Devon Hamilton, you can play B.B. Landers. Those guys are all good inside. You've got depth at D tackle. Right now we have a bunch of young guys, and then we have Chase Young, who's awesome but also a true sophomore. So, yeah, I think moving Draymond outside is something that they need to consider pretty strongly here going forward. It's the only way you're going to put a Band-Aid on the Bosa situation long term, assuming nobody at D tackle gets hurt. But there's no question, too. We need to point this out without Nick Bosa. The D-line at OSU is considered this year to be even better than the line last year, right? Because the starters were just so apex, right? You had 3 first-round caliber kind of guys in Young, Bosa, and Draymond, right? And then B.B. Landers is super quick off the ball. He might not be a prototypical size guy, but he's a great D tackle. The starting 4 this year, you can argue, were better than the starting 4 last year, and the starting 4 last year were awesome. But without Joey Bosa now, or Nick Bosa, I'm sorry, without Nick, you have 2 guys like that, and everybody else is kind of just there at the ends. So I think Draymond Jones should rep at both positions. Make him one of those jack-of-all-trades kind of guys. Remember how Darian Scott used to pop in and out? Do the same thing with Draymond. That's going to at least help Ohio State schematically hold down the edge and not wear these young guys out that maybe outside of Chase Young aren't playing at a super high level.
Ohio State at Purdue Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Game will be televised by ABC. Buckeyes favored by 13.5 points. Not a huge spread there, rightfully so. I mean, Purdue, I know they're 3-3, they're 2-1 in the Big Ten, but they are peaking at the right time. They started off 0-3, they're now 3-3. They don't have the stupid 2-quarterback system that never works anymore. They have 1 quarterback, and he's playing really well in David Blau. I think Jeff Brom's an excellent offensive coach. In fact, I know Jeff Brom's an excellent offensive coach. They can move the ball. Rondale Moore's electric. Their defense isn't good. Purdue is 10th in the country in total offense. They're 92nd in the country in total defense. But Ohio State, you look at them, similar. I mean, Ohio State's better offensively and better defensively, but Ohio State number 2 in the country in total offense. Buckeyes just 58th in the country, though, backs in total defense. Do you think this will be a tricky game Saturday night at Ross-Ade Stadium?
God, yes, I do. That game terrifies me. I'm more scared of this game than almost any regular season game because the effort is going to be there for the trip to Michigan State. The game at home is going to have the fans completely jacked up and ready to go, and the team's going to be ready to play. And Urban never loses that game. He hasn't yet. But this game, and this is what at the start of the year that worried me, this is a good Purdue team. People go, oh, they're only 3-3. They lost to Eastern Michigan. If you watch the first 3 games, they could easily be 5-1 right now. They had Northwestern, the first game of the year that they lost to by less than a score, and they were getting the ball back with 2 minutes left when they got a stupid penalty. And let's face it, you trust Northwestern's defense to stop this Purdue offense if given the chance? I don't. They lost to Missouri on a last-second field goal, and then they lost to Eastern Michigan by a point in a game where they ran for 340 yards but had red zone fumbles because of the hurricane effect storms coming through. This Purdue team is good. If this Purdue team had been 5-1 right now, they'd be talked about as a ranked team. And honestly, I'm not sure I don't think they beat Wisconsin later this year because they're actually good. Now, their defense stinks, especially against the pass. So OSU is going to put up a ton of points in this game. But this is the type of team on the road, at night, with players. If anybody's watched Rondale Moore, you have to be terrified. Absolutely terrified. If they line him up in the slot and Pete Werner runs out to cover him, just give them 7 points and give me 2 more drinks because it's going to be a long night. And I look at this Purdue team as a coach in Jeff Brome, who in a couple of years is going to be at an elite school. Purdue is going to succeed very well under him this year and the next couple of years. I see a quarterback and a passing game that's completely capable of taking advantage of an OSU secondary that's still figuring things out. And it's that damn road night game that always seems to be in OSU's wheelhouse. And one more thing. I put this in the bucket of bullets. This century, Ohio State has lost at Purdue 4 times. That is more than any school. That is more than at Penn State with all these whiteouts that we've had to deal with. They've lost more at Purdue than Penn State. They've lost more at Purdue than in Ann Arbor. They've lost more at Purdue than at Wisconsin. In fact, they've lost more at Purdue than they have in Wisconsin and Ann Arbor combined. So, yeah, oh, by the way, They haven't played Purdue in 5 years, and that number still holds. So this place, for whatever reason, is almost always a shit show for OSU. And I'm hoping it isn't one this Saturday night. I'm going to be there, and, man, I'm hoping that I am not hearing I've been working on the railroad 100 times, because this is the type of game with a banged-up young OSU team that only does throwing the football well, that if something goes wrong or if it rains and the passing game's having trouble, we could be in for a long night. So I'm scared of this game. 13 points, I don't gamble anymore because I always lost, so maybe this will help OSU, but I would bet on Purdue to cover that spread if I had to. This is a scary game, and if OSU gets out of this one and gets into the off week at 8-0, we will be fortunate. Win by 1 is my attitude going into this game.
You know there's reason for concern when the People's Champ's a little concerned about the game. So we'll see how it goes this Saturday night. Thank you very much to Matt Baxendell. He is the People's Champ. I appreciate it, Bax, and I appreciate all the listeners out there for tuning into the show. Hope everyone has a great day. Let's hear that Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.